And we're off. Voila. Hi, gang. We're back. NFL schedule release week. And I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. I love this week. I almost prefer this week to the NFL draft. That's how much I love NFL schedule. Because I'm one of those that wants to know, wants to find out. I want to know when the Dolphins are playing, who and where. Before I continue rambling on, say hi, everyone, to Ken LaVicka, my buddy, my pal, ESPN radio talk show host, voice of Florida Atlantic University Sports, voice of Inter Miami soccer team, football team. How do I describe it? One or the other?
Either way is fine. You're a native of North America. You can go with soccer.
Okay, fair enough. How are you, Ken?
I'm great. I don't necessarily share the same enthusiasm you do about NFL schedule.
This was Ken LaVicka. We're gonna go. Yes,
no, but here's why. I'm like you. I do appreciate knowing who and when, well, at least within parameters based on what could happen during the season. What I don't love is then the win-loss. That's a problem when we don't know the rosters. We don't know what the team's going to look like. We're not even close to training camp yet. We're in rookie freaking minicamp. And then another thing that I think you're going to get mad at is that we are starting to see a lot of copycat behavior from the social media teams of the respective NFL franchises who are taking the hot new schedule release one year that made laugh and it went viral and everybody had a good chuckle and they got a bunch of clickies, and then other teams are stealing that idea and trying to turn it into their own content the very next year. How many years in a row have we seen the rando on the street not know the team logo that they're looking at, and they make something up like, oh, it's the flaming horse heads? Every social media team does that now for like 4 straight years.
Dude, I'm going to cut you off here because I've never seen it other than the only other one. You're referring to the first time came up, the 2023 Tennessee Titans schedule release.
Yes.
Which was absolutely hilarious, which gave us the Florida Atlanta Dolphins. They're the Pirates from the Islands of the Caribbean. I mean, it was really, really funny. The only other sequel I've seen or copycat thing was the Titans went back and tried to do it again in 2024, and it wasn't anywhere near as good. And I will challenge you, my friend, or ask you more politely, because I'm polite. I'm a polite Canadian. Please send me a link to any other team that's done that, because I haven't seen any other team do that particularly.
Okay. I will flood and I'm one of the few that has the personal cell phone number of Alan Poupart. So I will text you a number of links to Division I college football programs that ripped that off. Now, yes, I'm taking some liberties, but I think that's where I've been affected because I live in the college football world. And so trust me, there were a lot of 20-year-old interns that ripped off that idea the last 2 years, big time.
Yeah, okay. So you said, but never let the truth stand in the way of a good story. That's the first rule of journalism. I kid, people. I kid. We always tell the truth. Me, I always tell the truth, even when I lie. Okay.
That's right.
Thank you. But so I haven't seen it. And to your point about going through the schedule after it's released, win, loss. Here's the thing is, from a pure journalistic standpoint, I don't like it any more than you do.
Mm-hmm.
But you'd be surprised the amount of interest there is in that from fans. And it's the same as, dude, let's be honest, mock drafts. I've seen people do 8 mock drafts before the same person do 8 mock drafts before the draft. Do we need to have that many mock drafts? I've seen 7-round mock draft, and tell me, let's go ahead and do the research and see how many of those guys actually hit from rounds 5 through 7. But again, there is an appetite for that. There are a lot of fans who really, really like those.
Yeah, no, but you and I are on the same wavelength because I was about to say, well, I don't share your same level of anticipation for NFL schedule release week. It is infinitely better. I mean, we're talking Himalaya-esque, altitude level higher, greater than the NFL draft and the constant mock drafts. Like, listen, I get it, Daryl from North Lauderdale. You think you have the 6th round pegged. I understand that. But you know what? I don't care. Who are you? And I prefer to actually consume the draft after, I don't know, the selections are made. Because to be quite honest, I'll be totally transparent here. Once you get outside of the first 2 or 3 rounds, who am I to say that any player is going to hit or be a good pick or going to contribute to their respective team? Sorry, I don't think anybody has those type of prognostication tools, to be quite honest.
And you know who shares your sentiment? Then this was very interesting to me. I saw Eric DaCosta, Baltimore Ravens general manager, who basically saying his philosophy is volume because one GM to the next doesn't really know for a fact which guys are going to pan out. So, and this, when I heard that, I was like, that's what I was talking about.
Yes.
About related to the Dolphins trade in the 2nd round for Jonah Savaiinaia. And by the way, folks, please stop commenting on this thing. I know how to pronounce it. I was right there when Jonah said it one more time. Savaiinaia. Okay.
Savaiinaia.
Savaiinaia. And if you see the little clip of the one, how about the first name? That was me being a smart guy.
I will say this, and I watched the clip, but only so let me pronounce it again. Savaiinaia. Savaiinaia. Okay.
No,
but
you will not leave the show without saying it right. Savaiinaia. Like Hawaii, but Savaiinaia.
Savaiinaia.
There you go.
Okay, Savaiinaia. But you dropping the joke, how about the first name? Like David Furones of the Sun Sentinel, I saw him tweet about it and credit you with it because I couldn't pick out the voice immediately. That is, your comedic chops have evolved over the years. You've always been slyly funny, but I tell you what, your material has freshened up that much more as you've aged. That's really well done.
Thank you. It's watching the greats like yourself.
Observation comedy at its best. Yes.
There you go. Where was I? Oh, but this is my point was all along that was, and I will ask you about your thoughts as a Dolphin fan, because you are that, along with being a fine radio play-by-play guy and a fine radio talk show host.
Thank you.
That was my reservation about it. And for the record, no, I did not hate it because I don't pretend to know exactly what kind of NFL player Jonah is going to be. But what I said is he better be damn good because the Dolphins gave up on the idea of volume and quantity over quality when they made the trade up and sacrificed some of those picks. Now, having said all that, give me your overall general thoughts on the Dolphins 2025 draft.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised about the Kenneth Grant pick in the first round. Like, I suppose we can go, that's first and foremost. For me, though, I think that I became a bit brainwashed by how many mock drafts were projecting him maybe as a second round pick. And that sort of caught on. That became a trend in the 2 to 3 weeks leading up to the draft. But listen, it's not often that, and I know it's easy to bash Chris Grier, and the Dolphins had so many needs, and I understand the desire to maybe try and go get a corner with that 13th pick. I get it. I understand it. And I think we're at a point now, Poop, where no matter what Chris Grier does, and probably rightfully so, there's going to be a lot of doubt cast upon whatever move he makes, especially in conjunction with Mike McDaniel. But anytime you can get someone who has played consistently at 350 pounds and moves the way he does along the defensive front, and at the highest level of college football was able to make the plays that he did. He jumps off on film. Watching real-time football, you say, boy, that's a big guy, and he does some incredible things with that massive frame. I'm not willing to say that the Dolphins reached, because I truly believe from a pure football perspective, they saw him, what he could bring to a defensive front. He's going to be an immediate contributor. And they said, you know what? We can get him stronger in the upper body where we need to get stronger. We saw him on a defensive line that was dominating some of the best offensive fronts in all of college football en route to a national championship. This guy is good. So for me, I'm good with the Kenneth Grant selection. I also don't understand, Poop, and maybe you can guide me on this. I saw a lot of Dolphins fans bemoaning the fact that he's not a 3-down lineman, but I never saw any indication that he wasn't a 3-down lineman. He was playing 3 downs at Michigan. I haven't read anywhere where scouts had a major concern about him not being able to play 3 downs. Where does that come from? Or is that just an assumption based on the fact that maybe he has some work to do in the pass rush and he's just big?
No, correct. You nailed it right there. That the pass rushing skills are inconsistent, and that's an area where he needs work. And I'm glad you mentioned, by the way, because Ken mentioned the working on the upper body strength. That's one of the rare complaints about him, that the upper body strength, I think his bench showing at the combine was not very impressive, especially compared to other defensive linemen. But again, he's a 6'4", 325 guy who can move. I was remiss in not asking you this first, actually, as we talk about this draft class. In calling FAU games, did you come across any of the Dolphins picks and who were from Michigan, Arizona, Maryland again, Florida, Oklahoma State, Texas, and Georgia Tech?
So I knew you were going to ask this, and I thought maybe not directly with those teams. And I know some of those guys moved around a little bit, including the tackle from Maryland who was at Penn State prior. But I'm sorry, Chop Robinson was at Maryland, and then he was at Penn. Two were together. So I did not even in the portal. This is one of the rare years. And in fact, even of the undrafted rookies, there's really not anybody in there that would have faced FAU over the last 2 or 3 years. So no, but it's funny. FAU actually plays Maryland to start this coming season. So I missed those 2 guys by a single season. But listen, I understand that there's going to be detractors with the draft, and it's more probably Chris Greer detractors. But I also look, and you're right. You made a very risky proposition in that second round, going and getting an offensive lineman and giving up picks to do so. But listen. If you have the wherewithal and you have the desire and you have that player has proven to you, hey, we need this guy. Who am I to question it at this juncture? But you needed someone on the offensive front. You went and got somebody who appears to be day one NFL ready on the offensive front. Raving about him, scouts and former opponents and former coaches who coached against him. So listen, I think that it was an unconventional type of draft for the Dolphins, but at this point you have nothing to lose. You needed to go get guys that you could leverage success with right away. I think that Kenneth Grant's upside is significantly greater than, he might not have he only had 22 reps, right? It was 22 reps at the combine. Listen, I've seen that guy absolutely manhandle grown men along the Penn State offensive front, okay? Do the same thing to Ohio State offensive linemen. I get the sense he's going to be okay by the time we hit week 1. That's just me, though. What do I know?
Yeah, right. What do you know? No, I'm just kidding. What do I know? What do any of us know, actually? Let me go back to the schedule here quickly. I'm going to jump around, but let me go back to the schedule. By now, especially if you check out Miami Dolphins on SI.com, which you should, a lot of content every day for free, you would know that, again, all the tea leaves for a while have been the Dolphins' opponent for the Spain game is going to be the Washington Commanders. The latest is a report from a daily newspaper in Madrid, Spain, which might have decent sources on the topic, saying that it's indeed going to be the Washington Commanders on November 16th, which will be week 11, which will be the latest the Dolphins play a Europe game, topping the week 9 game at Germany against the Chiefs 2 years ago. Nothing else has come out as we're taping this. The only other game that's been announced, there were supposed to be 3 games announced on Monday. As we're taping this, the only game that's been announced by the NFL is Dallas at Philadelphia to open the regular season on the Thursday night. I don't know about you, but for me, it's a big yawn because Philly is so much better than Dallas, number 1, number 2, because I have an aversion to teams, people who soak up more oxygen than their accomplishments merit. And the Dallas Cowboys
That's the definition of the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah.
So, all reports are that the first Friday night game is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs against the Los Angeles Chargers in Sao Paulo, Brazil. So that's where it stands right now. And of course, we'll know how many primetime games the Dolphins have and all that good stuff.
I find myself I find myself with these international games like, great, let's grow the game, but it's getting too difficult to keep track of who's going where and which cities and which venues are going to host. Now it'll be interesting because Madrid, they just redid that stadium, and they're playing where Real Madrid is host the Bernabeu, and it is beautiful. They designed, remodeled the stadium, completely overhauled it. In the vision of Tottenham when they built their stadium to be a dual facility American football like that. But I hate losing home games like that. I just do, and it's frustrating, and it goes along with being a brand, and I know everybody has to do it, but when you have these newer international games that are popping up, your first time in a location, or it's still relatively new that you're going to a new country, the Chiefs will come up. The Dolphins will come up. The Cowboys will come up. It's just, I could do without it. And I hate when it's this team missing out on a home game, especially against a playoff caliber opponent. As you laid out in your piece detailing why it's the Commanders, it appears, that are going to be the opponent that play the Dolphins. The Dolphins had to choose to protect, 2 games during the course of the season? Yeah. And so you obviously want it to be divisional opponents. And so the Bills come to mind, an AFC opponent. The Bengals come to mind, as you laid out. So you're exactly right. It's just, I could do without him. Like, I like the fine. Great. We have football at 8:30 in the morning. But honestly, I just, whatever, man. I know it's
5:30. I love that. I'm sorry. I love that. Unless it's like, what was the game? The game last year that was, was it Jacksonville, New England? Oof, was that a bad matchup?
Oh, yeah. And also, by the way, just a quick thought on Spain. And this is going to make traditional Spaniards upset, I have a feeling. So sorry, I don't mean to offend. But Catalonia and Barcelona in particular, significantly better part of the country, in my opinion. More to do, more to see, steeped in more tradition than the southern portion of Spain, just in my opinion. I love Barcelona.
Okay, I've been to Barcelona once as part of a cruise, so I can't. No, we went to 3 different cities. I'm sorry. Hold on. Mallorca we went to.
Okay.
And I'm forgetting the other one. Anyway, it was very nice. We found this remote beach when we went to Spain that was not close to where the cruise had docked. A local gave us that tip, and it was absolutely fabulous.
Wow.
Anyway, I digress, as I tend to do. I just want to point out, however, that in my story, talking about the 2 games that the Dolphins were allowed to protect, I was not reporting anything. It was me spitballing.
Right.
To me, logic would say you don't want to squander your Buffalo game and have it played in Madrid, Spain, especially if the NFL is kind enough to schedule it for South Florida in, I don't know, September. And then Cincinnati's another one that made sense to me from a trying to draw standpoint. The fact that Tua Tagovailoa, Joe Burrow, the first 2 QB selected in the 2020 draft, have never faced each other in Miami, because their year in 2020 when the Bengals came down here, Burrow was on IR with a knee injury, and it was, I want to say, Brandon Allen maybe was playing quarterback. So again, spitballing, perhaps that would have been the reason. And if you look at the rest of the schedule, where the Dolphins really have like wanted to protect the Jets or New England. I don't know. Maybe. They're good. They're good draws.
From a draw, from a draw perspective.
Yeah, but they're draws where half the crowd, if not more, is rooting for the opponent. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so that takes care of the schedule. Okay, here comes the obligatory question. How does Ken LaVicka, as a fan, feel about this entire Jalen Ramsey situation? And what was your reaction when you saw the Instagram post with the rotten orange next to an even more rotten orange?
Yeah. So I understand where Jalen Ramsey's coming from. Listen, it does not feel like this team is going to be, they may in that building have Super Bowl aspirations. I think common sense would dictate that the Super Bowl is probably not an attainable, feels less attainable going into this season than it did the last 2 years. And certainly since Jalen Ramsey was acquired by the Dolphins. I don't know what is happening with the relationship between Jalen Ramsey and Mike McDaniel. I think it's an easy place to go to just say, oh, well, that relationship is soured. I don't know. I have absolutely no clue. What I find frustrating is that this is a guy who the Dolphins re-upped with in good faith. One of the, other than Jalen Waddle's extension last year, how poor does last offseason end up feeling with Tua, who ends up having maybe the least effective quote-unquote healthy season, I suppose, other than, an unfortunate concussion blip once again. Tyreek Hill, who is an abject disaster in almost every sense of the word. And now you've got Jalen Ramsey, who wants out. Let's be perfectly clear, and the Dolphins have tried to frame it as, we're going to try and do this in conjunction. Jalen Ramsey or his agent or both of them went to Chris Grier and said, I want out. I'm not happy. This is not a good situation for me. But all this happening as Jalen Ramsey appeared to be one of the main forces in this cryptic social media sniping, trash talking of Vic Fangio. I find it unbecoming. Like, this guy came in and immediately didn't like the defensive coordinator. And instead of saying it outright and being a veteran player like he is, should be respected in the locker room, he's taking the Instagram stories. Like, get out of here with that. It drives me absolutely insane. And so now he wants out, and he wants out after the Dolphins already paid him $4 million at the start of the league year. I suppose thanks for the contributions, but And he played through injury. I respect that. But there have been multiple instances of Jalen Ramsey coming to South Florida, and it was supposed to be this great homecoming, and he was supposed to be a critical piece of helping this team realize expectations. There were some really glaring leadership gaps when it came to Jalen Ramsey, and I don't appreciate that at all after some of the red carpet treatment the Dolphins gave the guy.
How do you really feel about it, man?
It just, I really, and I understand it's just business, but I think sometimes that we hide behind that. This is a guy who came in injured. This is a guy who the Dolphins allowed to rehab and really worked with him and immediately incorporated him into a defense that was one of the best in the league. And what did Jalen Ramsey do after the season? He went to Instagram and didn't have the guts to outright say that was not a good fit. Vic Fangio, not a good coach. That wasn't good for us. He's just doing this cryptic Instagram stuff. And then, listen, I just don't like the way he conducted himself as someone who we know he's vocal. Yeah, Jalen Ramsey is one of the most vocal guys, period, that you're going to find. And he never had the fortitude to actually stand up and say anything he apparently meant. And now it's, well, I want out, and we're going to work to get traded.
He's not vocal with the media because he barely when he speaks to the media, it's usually very, very brief, and he makes it a point to say it's going to be brief before it starts. The one time he spoke at length is when the Dolphins signed him, and they had the introductory press conference. No, I'm with you that it's not a good look, and if you're again, if you're bailing because you don't like the way the direction of the team, I mean, you're supposed to, as a leader, as a high profile player, you want to be part of the solution as opposed to bailing on it. If it's some sort of personality clash with Mike McDaniel, and this is where I'm going to point out, Mike McDaniel was asked whether there are any conflicts with him or how we would describe his relationship with Jalen Ramsey. Was asked that at the end of the draft, and he punted on the question. Basically, said I wanted the focus to be on the incoming players as opposed to anything else. To which one person, anybody skeptical, might say, if the relationship was fine, he could have just said, very easily, the relationship, absolutely zero issue with the relationship. Now let's focus on the guys on the draft.
I have a concern, and I suppose this is a concern solely about Mike McDaniel, who has done nothing to push me off of this. I like Mike McDaniel, want him to succeed. I think he's got great football acumen, but it's clear he wants to run a players run locker room.
Yes.
But in order to do that, you need to be able to unequivocally have everybody's respect. I don't think there's any issue with trusting Mike McDaniel in that locker room, but I do think it's become clear that there is an issue respecting Mike McDaniel and his oversight of an organization in that locker room. So you better damn well find guys who can be those pillars in a player-run locker room. And it's clear that Javon Holland was never going to become that. He was immature. He's going to Instagram. He's kicking rocks. He's doing all that nonsense. I'm so happy Javon Holland, who never earned himself that contract with the Dolphins, and it seemed like that was a foregone conclusion, is out of that locker room. Jalen Ramsey, it's going to suck not having him, but it's probably for the better if the Dolphins do have long-term designs of staying with Mike McDaniel. That who the next name I'm going to mention is, who's going to have to be the next one out in order to fully achieve what they want to do.
Hold on. Does it rhyme with Myrick Bill?
In fact, it does. So I don't know. It's Zach Sealer. No, but I think that I don't know. But this presents this quandary then as well. Is that even achievable? And does that mean that if this year ends up being a 7-win season, that you're just going to have to say, you know what, Mike, we appreciate you. We had a couple of fun, what could have been seasons. And I'm not saying go complete 180 to a dictator, but find someone who's a little more conventional as a head coach with the same type of brain. I don't know, but I'm not feeling great about that locker room right now and the coaching approach to it, because it hasn't worked. There's too many fault lines right now.
Yeah, and moving beyond that to what could happen down the road, I believe that if the decision winds up being made that it's better for the long-term health of the franchise to move on from Jalen Ramsey, to move on from Tyreek Hill, I would think there would be consideration given by upper management that the Dolphins now are operating at a talent deficit because they let go. Mm-hmm. They may have created addition by subtraction, but they also let go of probably their two best players. And I do think there would be some allowance made for that when it comes to evaluating the future. And the other part I would want to say on this, when the time does arrive for a change, if you look at the last three hires, we notice a correction. It's gone from almost one extreme to another, where you went from Adam Gase, who was, I don't want to say loosey-goosey is the right term, but certainly was not Brian Flores, who was more like a drill sergeant, and then you go back to somebody who's way more like Adam Gase. So now, again, does the cycle go back to a drill sergeant type like Brian Flores?
You went from camp counselor to prison warden to hippie. Those are your three coaching hires consecutively. Like, how about an in between at some point? Now, I get it's probably kind of reckless to just declare this could be it for Mike McDaniel, but I do think that what we've seen, and I think the Jalen Ramsey thing really underscores it, is that there is, at least with some key players, a gap in Mike McDaniel and how players feel when things get rough, when slides happen, when you're in the toughest parts of the season. There's a gap between McDaniel and those players and their belief in him to actually help lead them out of it. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, because I love Mike McDaniel, but the body of work right now states that he is not capable of leading this team out of the toughest, most dire moments in a long football season.
Except I would counter that by saying the record says he's made the playoffs 2 of his 3 seasons as a head coach.
If this was 5 years ago, he wouldn't have, though, before they made the playoff change.
Understood. They made the playoffs with the same record in 2022 that Brian Flores didn't make the playoffs in 2021. Understood. The other part of that is he's made the playoffs twice in the last 3 years, however you want to look at it, though,
True.
With his quarterback missing significant time. And that, so again, to me, any discussion of like, well, if the Dolphins don't make the playoffs, there's a coaching change. To me, that's way too black and white. There has to be some nuance applied in there. It's going to depend on how exactly it goes. If it's 5-12 and players quit on him, obviously, then logically a change would need to be made. But I don't think it's as simple as no playoffs gone. Sorry, it doesn't work like that. I don't know that I have anything else on my agenda. Any closing thoughts from you as we look ahead to in June?
I love rookie minicamp time because stories come out, and I think all of you guys have done a really good job of reporting on the rookies, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this Jalen Ramsey thing plays out. I do want to give some rare credit to the New York Jets, who decided to, according to reports since the last time we talked, Poop, actually stand up to Aaron Rodgers and had him fly to New Jersey simply to tell him, yeah, we're going to go in a different direction. And it is so poetic. And I'm not going to go any further heaping praise on the Jets, but it is so poetic after Aaron Rodgers basically sat there and ghosted the Packers and went on his darkness retreats and you can text me. And then he gets mad when the Jets bring him in, do the professional thing, bring him in face to face to tell him, hey, you know what? I think we need to break up. This isn't working. And then he scurries to his old TV friend, Pat McAfee, to whine and complain about it. It made me feel so good because no one deserves to feel as jilted as he does as Aaron Rodgers. It was just so poetic to see that. And then the Jets going and signing a quarterback who I think is going to struggle mightily as the starter with the Jets in Justin Fields. Like I don't see that going well at all. And that Jets defense will be fine. But dare I say that the prospect of Justin Fields should not strike any fear in the hearts of the Dolphins defense. And I'd like that to be my final thought.
Why are you so vindictive, man? It's like I don't like Aaron Rodgers. Speaking of oxygen soakers, that would be one right there. Could you? I don't know. There's some vindictiveness there that you can just tell him over the phone, dude. You be gone. Bye. You're supposed to make him.
But then he'd complain about that too. He'd say, "Oh well, Pat. I thought that it was really immature. They didn't bring me into New York. I've been in the area." Like he'd do the same nonsense there too. Like he's never happy. And my prediction from many months ago, and I said this multiple times on national radio, and I had national ESPN personalities who will remain nameless, but you know who you are. And if you try and take credit for this, I'm going to call you out eventually on this very podcast right here. But I said Aaron Rodgers would be a Pittsburgh Steeler all the way going back to November. I said, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. And I'm telling you, Poop, that prognostication is looking great right now. Hasn't happened officially, but I think it's going to happen. And don't think that over the summer, I am not going to be on ESPN radio constantly praising myself for my foresight when it came to Aaron Rodgers.
Allow myself to praise myself. We're going to wrap this up with some breaking news. I mean, talk about breaking just in my inbox here. The Dolphins have signed cornerback Kendall Sheffield. In case you're wondering who that might be, he actually was one of the tryout players at rookie minicamp, but he's not a rookie player. Actually, he is a veteran of, I believe, as I recall, I'm going to look at it very quickly here, 49 NFL games with 20 starts. Came into the league as a fourth-round pick of the Atlanta Falcons in the 2019 NFL Draft. Started his 20 games the first 2 seasons with the Falcons, bounced around, played with San Francisco in 2023. This is post Mike McDaniel then, with the Tennessee Titans, and then last year with the New York Jets. And the way the cornerback room looks right now, it would be silly to even eliminate him as a contender for a starting position. That's the way the cornerback room looks right now.
Yeah. How does Kendall Sheffield fit in the Dolphins cornerback room? He's living and breathing and can run a sub 4.8 40. That's why he belongs in the Dolphins cornerback room. By the way, Ohio State guy, apparently, and spent some time at Blinn College, tiny little Blinn College in Texas. How about that?
Okay, you very good. You got the same press release. Very well done. So, Kendall Sheffield, and we joke, but the fact remains the Dolphins are very, very unproven at cornerback, particularly with Jalen Ramsey on his way out the door. And for those wondering, the percentage of him possibly returning, mending fences on both ends, 5% maybe, 5%. Yeah. That's some toothpaste.
But it's not zero. It's not zero.
Not zero, but don't count on it. So, and everything will happen past June 1st because of salary cap considerations. So,
right.
Kendall Sheffield signs with the Dolphins. Breaking news here at the end of this podcast. That's going to wrap it up. I am going to thank, as always, my good friend Ken LaVicka. Catch his fine work on ESPN Radio. Whenever there's Florida Atlantic University athletics going on, and then whenever Inter Miami soccer team plays. When's the next soccer match?
Wednesday night, they are at San Jose Earthquakes. It'll be the first ever trip to Northern California in an MLS capacity with Lionel Messi. And he'll play. It looks like he'll start. Good times all around.
Nice. I like it. So, and gang, please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Thanks for watching. Programming notes, barring breaking news of major significance, the next episode is going to be after the schedule release on Wednesday night, where we'll be analyzing it, because I don't want to do it before Wednesday night because games are going to be leaking all over the place and it's going to get outdated very quickly. So be on the lookout for it. If you subscribe, as you should, you'll get notifications. So thanks, everyone. Until we meet again, we won't see each other.